Getting this warm welcome from you. If you're coming, as Marley said, just to listen, hear what I'm about. You know you have a choice in November. You want to make sure it's an informed one, and you get to listen to everyone who's vying for your vote. This opportunity to lead the greatest state in the union. You're welcome as well. I know we have some folks who maybe outside who are protesting. They're welcome to come inside, and we'll even give them the microphone, hear what they've got to say, because the reason I came to Quanah today, the reason I'm returning to Quanah right now, is to listen and learn from the people that I hope to serve as governor. The best way that I can deliver for this community is by showing up first and understanding what is your expectation. And if we could turn the volume down just a little bit, what your expectations are, what the opportunities are that you see, what the needs are in this community come January 2023 community. So, in the interest of being able to do that, I'm going to try to keep my remarks brief. We have a second microphone. I want to turn it over to you and make sure that I have every opportunity to hear what's on your mind, to answer your questions, to hear the solutions to some of the challenges that you face. So just before I walked in, we were on, Cynthia was at 7th Street, 6th Street, knocking on doors, trying to meet the folks who are going to vote in this next election. Every door we knocked on, folks weren't home. Probably because you're here right now, I hope. That's the reason. Maybe at a late church service, maybe getting some food with family. Who knows what people were doing. But as we were about to get in the truck, give up, come over here and get a chance to see you all, we saw a young man who was out raking his yard. And Cynthia approached him, and I followed her lead, and we just said, hey, tell us about Quanah. Tell us how we could be doing a better job as a state of Texas in partnering with Quanah, Texas right now. And he said that he's born and raised here. His dad has a ranch just outside of the community. He moved to the DFW metro area, as I understand from his telling, a number of young people do, or at least have the choice to do. And he said, you know what, I don't want to feel like if you grow up in Quanah and if you want to get ahead that you've got to leave this community. I would love for people to see more opportunities to stay here or to come back here if they've moved away. This guy's now working as a therapist. I think his wife is working as a therapist as well. They spend some time at the local hospital. They have their own private business, and they'll even visit you in your home through a concierge service. Pretty good jobs, and something that really helps this community do better, be healthier, be well enough to live to its full potential, a success story in every way that I can measure. But he said, you know what gets me is this is a proud community. We've been here for forever, many, many generations. But he said, Betzo, and I'm taking his word for it, you correct me if I'm wrong in my interpretation. He said, you know, if you want a plumber, if you want an electrician, if you want somebody in the trades, very often they're coming in from Dallas or Fort Worth or the Metroplex. I mean, we've got bright young people here, and very often I feel, and I'm paraphrasing what Ryan told me, that you're looked down upon if you don't go away to a big college. You're looked down upon if you don't have one of these professions that others have deemed to be the right kinds of jobs for you to have. He said, why aren't we promoting people to pursue a welder's certification or to join the IBEW and become an electrician, start out as an apprentice, move your way up to a journeyman? You're going to be commanding a 6-figure salary. You don't need a day of college or community college for that matter to be able to do it. Where are the carpenters that I'm looking for in this community? This is all what Ryan told me right now. I love hearing that because as I travel this state, and as I meet people of all ages, but especially young people who are pursuing these trades right now that do not require a day of college, and sometimes are provided through our local high schools. I'm thinking of Roscoe, Texas, home of the plowboys and the plowgirls at their local high school. Every one of those kids graduates at the age of 18, not just with a high school diploma, but an associate's degree in some kind of skill or trade that they want to pursue right there in Roscoe or next door in Sweetwater or some other part of their community, they're able to stay and take care of those farms and ranches on which they were raised. Their moms, their dads will be able to pass that on to them. Again, I think that is a success story. Let's see more of that taking place across rural Texas. The problem is, I don't have to tell you this, so many of our rural communities are taken for granted. They're written off. They're forgotten. In many cases, they were never known to begin with. You do not show up in Quanah by accident. You're not just passing through. You have to want to come to this community, as I wanted to come to this community today. It has such an amazing history, such great stories that originated here, going all the way back, of course, to the 19th century, but all the way through to today with what Marley, with what Ryan, with what others are doing in this community. Part of coming here is being able to reflect the stories that I'm hearing to the rest of the state of Texas, so that this is on the radars of 30 million other Texans who deserve to know the value that Quanah is providing. You all heard this phrase a million times, but it bears repeating. The food, the fuel, the fiber that powers our country's economy, that makes Texas the greatest state, a 2 trillion GDP state, the 9th largest economy on the planet, would not be possible without what is happening right here in Quanah and other rural communities. So how do we make sure that we have a state government that doesn't take it for granted? I understand from what Marley said, and again, check me on this if I'm wrong, that the current governor and maybe the previous governor and the governor before that were not showing up for town hall meetings like this one to hear what's on your minds, to address you, to be held accountable by the very people they are supposed to serve. But that's what we are going to do here today. Let me give you a few ideas of what I'd like to pursue as governor. And as Ryan said, the young man that I just met raking his yard, he said, I could care less if you're a Democrat. I could care less if you're a Republican. I just want to make sure that you're going to do the right thing when you're in office. Here are some things that I want to do. I hope they're the right things. One, I want to make sure that the kids of Ryan, Marley's kids, your kids and grandkids, get a world-class public school education. Some of the challenges that we have in some of our rural communities is that we are grossly underpaid as classroom teachers, as counselors, as librarians, against the state average, and even more so against the national average. The teacher in this community, on average, is underpaid by $16,000 a year against the national average in this country. I'm not saying against the highest paid teacher in America. I'm saying the average of what teachers are paid in America, $16,000 less. Now, I know that the teachers in this community are not $16,000 less valuable than teachers across the rest of this country. It's part of taking these communities for granted and part of a state policy that forces local property tax payers to bear the burden of increases in pay for teachers. As governor, I want to make sure the state of Texas ups its share. Right now, it's 60% on you, 40% on the state of Texas. I'm going to work with a Republican legislator who introduced a bill to get that split at least to 50-50, to reduce the pressure on you, improve the spending that we're putting into our schools, and raise teacher pay, and keep more of these educators in our classrooms, in our libraries, and in the school buildings going forward. I also promise that I'm going to listen to the educators. You understand education better than I will ever hope to. No matter what position I may gain in life, you have the most important one. You're going to unlock, if you're doing your job, a lifelong love of learning in the head of that child. You're going to stoke a curiosity with once going means that there is no stopping that kid in what they're going to be able to do over the course of their lives. And what many of you have told me is that these high stakes, high pressure, standardized tests that we are so consumed by in this state that are great for the corporations who get the profits from making these tests, like the STAR test. They're great for them, but they're not so good for reflecting the potential in that child, the effort expended by that teacher, everything that is possible if we can just focus on the most important things. So as governor, I will seek to end the STAR test in the state of Texas. Let's replace it with something that you come up with. You diagnostic tools are that we need. Again, not something that you spend weeks or months prepping for with the kids in your class. I was just meeting an educator who's spending her summer with kids who didn't pass the STAR test. And so instead of playing ball right now or hanging out with their friends or doing whatever I was able to do over my summer break, they're back in a classroom getting ready not to read better or write better or add up better, but to take a test better. Those are some screwed up priorities if you ask me. The retired teachers. Now, these are the women, these are the men who gave the best years of their lives, literally, to our kids and to our grandkids to make sure that they could do better. But in this state, in this great state, again, 9th largest economy on the planet, we have not given them a cost of living adjustment since the year of our Lord, 2004. And think about all the costs that have gone up since then. Just in this last year, from gas to electricity bills, to property taxes, to what you pay at the grocery store, you name it, it has gone through the roof. Everything except for what those retired teachers can expect from the state of Texas. So, as governor, I'm going to increase the cost of living every single year to match inflation in the state of Texas. That's public education. That's making sure that we're treating those who have the care of our kids in their hands with the greatest respect and dignity to make sure that they can pursue their calling and do better for all of us. When it comes to being able to see a doctor or fill a prescription or take your child to a mental health care provider, there's nowhere to go in this state but up, literally. We're the least insured state in America, so harder to see a doctor, harder to fill that prescription, harder to go to that therapist. Speaking of that therapist, we're 51st, because I guess they include DC, 51st in the nation in access to mental health care. It means that our county jails in this state are the largest provider of mental health care services in Texas. I have met at meetings just like these, people who stand up and they say, my brother, my mom, my child will get arrested on purpose because they don't have insurance and they're untreated schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, clinical depression. The only place they're guaranteed any care is in the county jail. And in El Paso, I don't know what the rate is here in this county, the sheriff's department might be able to tell us. In El Paso, as taxpayers, we pay $120 a day to keep someone locked up because they don't have an alternative to go to. There's an answer to this, and it begins with expanding Medicaid. It would bring $10 billion in every single year. Our neighbors across the open border to the north in Oklahoma, they have chosen to expand Medicaid under a Republican governor and a Republican legislature. Same deal in our border state of Arkansas, same deal in our border state of Louisiana, same deal in our border state of New Mexico. What is most galling to me is that we are the ones who invented Medicaid in the first place. In 1965, the first Texas president, Lyndon Baines Johnson, in the summer of that year, signed the Medicaid Act into law. And now what the federal government is proposing is to send our federal income taxes that we as Texans have paid back to us in the form of this Medicaid expansion. $10 billion a year. We keep our rural hospitals open. 24 of them have closed just in the last 10 years. We expand the offerings. For those that are still open, sometimes they don't offer obstetrics, and you got to drive another 100 miles to find a place that will. Well, let's make sure that you can find it in this community, just as Ryan was saying we want to find the plumber, the electrician, and the carpenter in this community as well. Medicaid expansion allows us to do this. And the kicker is that when we expand Medicaid, when we take yes for an answer, bring those $10 billion in, we'll also reduce your property taxes. Because right now, if someone who is not insured, not covered, doesn't qualify for Medicaid, gets grievously ill, their suffering is too much, they're going to take themselves to your county hospital. They're going to get care. The outcomes will not be as good as they would have been if they'd gotten that care up front. We know that. The expense is going to be exponentially greater because they've left that condition untreated. But because they cannot afford to pay, the bill doesn't go away. It just gets picked up by you and me through our county property taxes. So expanding Medicaid reduces another form of pressure on property taxes, just like making sure that we spend more on our schools from the state level, and you pay less to live in your home, to keep that ranch in the family, to continue to farm that same land that generation after generation of your family's been able to farm. Last issue, that I want to bring up. We talked about healthcare. We talked about public education. We've talked about what Ryan said about attracting more jobs, better paying jobs, high value jobs to Quanah so folks can stay here or move back here if they've left away. The other issue is the one that maybe gets some of us who have friends or family members who live outside of Texas. And they're reading headlines about our state for all the wrong reasons. The temperature dropped last February and we couldn't keep the lights on, or the heat running, or the water flowing because our pipes froze. In the energy capital of the world, for days people went without power.
2 weeks here.
2 weeks here, I'm hearing. Hundreds of our fellow Texans, the most accurate estimate I've seen is over 700 of our fellow Texans died. They froze to death in their homes, as that 10-year-old boy did in Conroe, Texas. His mom couldn't pile enough blankets on his shivering body, and he died over the course of the night. They died of hypothermia in their trucks. 75-year-old Vietnam-era veteran couldn't charge his oxygen tank in his home. Took it out to his car to try to charge it there. That's where they found him dead the next morning. Kids who died of carbon monoxide poisoning next to their moms trying to stay warm in the garage with the motor running. People who burned up in their homes and apartments trying to stay warm. I know it's not a pleasant thing for us to think about or to talk about, but the fact that nothing has changed in this state to prevent it from happening again means that we have to talk about it so that we do something about it. While that was happening, while people were literally dying from the cold in this state, the pipeline companies, the CEOs of those corporations, the energy traders made $11 billion in profit over the course of 5 days last February. Some have called this the largest transfer of wealth in Texas history. 11 billion over 5 days. And I would argue it was illegal as well as being immoral. There's a state statute that says you cannot price gouge your fellow Texans in the midst of a declared emergency. And specifically stated in that statute is the cost of fuel. Greg Abbott, our current governor, told that those pipeline companies, those energy traders, that they could charge as much as 200 times the going rate for fuel that our utilities needed to generate the electricity that literally would have kept us alive. Some utilities have gone into bankruptcy proceedings. Others took billions of dollars on the chin to keep their customers alive. The kicker here, they passed the bill on to you. They passed the bill on to me. $45 per month more after the grid failed on Abbott's watch than the years before. One of the greatest drivers of inflation in the state of Texas, in addition to our skyrocketing property taxes. We look at what the governor has done to the women of this state, who are no longer trusted to make their own decisions about their own body. There's discussion of checking your travel papers if you want to move into another state and you're of childbearing age. I meet people who are treated for conditions unrelated to their pregnancy, like arthritis, with medications that might also be coincidentally used to induce an abortion. They're no longer prescribed those medications and have to travel out of state to treat their arthritis here in the state of Texas. 49 years after Abilene native Sarah Weddington successfully argued Roe versus Wade before an all-male Supreme Court. Half a century ago, Texas has taken us back into the Stone Ages, in a state that has one of the highest rates of maternal mortality in the developed world, 3 times as deadly for black women. And the reason being, when you shut down all these reproductive health care clinics, you also shut down the opportunity to get a cervical cancer screening, or to see a family planning provider, or again, in the least insured state in America, to see a provider of any kind at all. And we're losing women here far too quickly, and we need to do something about it. Last issue related to this, because you saw the concurring opinion from Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas in the Dobbs decision. Next on the chopping block is contraception. After that is marriage equality, and then intimate relations between same-sex partners. Yes, that came from a person who sits on the highest court of the land, and there are already state legislators who are picking up the baton and promise to make that our reality in the state of Texas. On all of those issues, what I see is chaos, I see cruelty, I see incompetence, and I see corruption. I see a governor who's looking out for those who can pay for access, the corporations who make those billions of dollars and turn around and write a $1 million campaign contribution check to his re-election campaign. I don't see someone who's looking out for the people of Texas, whether you're gay, whether you're a woman, whether you're straight, whether you're 8 generations a citizen of Quanah, or you just got here 8 days ago from another country in a legal, orderly way. I want to make sure that everyone is treated equally under the law, and that we draw forth the best from everyone among us, that we believe in one another, our potential, and our promise. I won't be able to do this justice, but I was just reading that great Woody Guthrie quote when I was at the drugstore that he worked at in Pampa yesterday. And the gist of it is, he says, I hate a song that tells you you're born to lose, or that you're too fat, or you're too skinny, you're too poor, you're too this, you're too that. He said, I'm here to sing a song that tells you you belong in this world. And this world is yours just as much as it's mine or anybody else's. I think that's who we are at our best. I think Woody Guthrie embodied the spirit of this part of Texas, of our state, really of our country. And I just want to get back to it. As Ryan said, I don't want to get back to it for Democrats. I don't want to get back to it for Republicans. I don't want to get back to it for independents. I want to get back to it for all of us. And no more division, no more we're supposed to hate this person or be afraid of the other. I want us to find the common ground where we come together and do big things in the state of Texas going forward. So, thank you all for coming out. Cynthia Quanah, who's on the left side of the room, has another microphone. She has some disinfectant cloths as well, so after someone uses it, she'll wipe it down and make sure it's safe for the next person to use it. And she'll bring that around the room and get as many voices into the conversation as possible. Cynthia.
All right, I'm looking forward to it. I will come to you if you raise your hand.
Hi, my name is Darby Sparkman. I'm born and raised in Quanah, and I'm only 23 years old, and I've already quit a career of being a teacher here because I was denied having an aide in my classroom full of 5-year-olds. The school district would not hire me an aide, but the football team got new helmets, new jerseys, and new cleats that same year. So I'm only 23. I'm from Quanah. I want to live here. I want to work here. I want to pay taxes here. I want to hire Quanah electricians and Quanah plumbers, but I don't want to work here if I don't have help in my classroom. And I don't care how much I'm paid. The cost of living here is low. If my paycheck is the same, whatever. But I also don't want to be in a classroom alone with 25-year-olds when it's state mandated that I'm supposed to have an aide all the time.
Darby, thanks for being here. Welcome to this set. And as I answer your question, let me just reflect on how what you just said matches what I've heard so many other teachers across the state say. Teachers who say, look, yes, that's why I would love to be paid more, but even if I'm not, I want you to think about the kids in my classroom who are on free and reduced breakfast and lunch, but I guarantee you they don't have a meal to look forward to when they go home, and very often out of my own pocket, I'm paying for it. Or that kid who shows up in the same dirty t-shirt, dirty pair of jeans, Monday through Friday. You can tell he's a little bit embarrassed, so I buy him a new set of clothes so on Monday he can hold his head up high and learn with dignity just like the other kids. You're not asking for anything for yourself. You're wanting to make sure that those 25-year-olds in your classroom get the individual attention that they deserve that will allow them to do better over the course of their lives. In the average 4th grade classroom in Texas, to connect kindergarten to 4th grade, 7 out of 10 4th graders cannot read at grade level. Now that challenge did not start in the 4th grade, it did not start in the 3rd grade. The earlier we can connect with these kids and deliver the kind of attention that Darby's talking about, the kind of classroom instruction, the kind of care, by having somebody else in that classroom help you, the better chance they're going to be reading at grade level in 4th grade, graduating from high school when they're 18, going on and pursuing their dreams, hopefully found right here in Quanah, Texas. So I promise you this, I will fully fund public education, including that additional person that you need in your classroom. I will fight this effort to take money away from your classroom in the form of vouchers that they want to send to private schools in big cities at the expense of Quanah and every other community I've visited over the last 3 days. And I will always listen to you. You understand what you need in your classroom better than anyone else. And that's why, as governor, I will appoint a classroom educator as our next TEA commissioner. I know they will be more likely to follow your lead than to impose a mandate on you. And last, but most importantly, the official statistic, and this is way too conservative, I know it's much worse than this, especially after 2 years of pandemic, is that 50% of Texas teachers leave the profession within their first 5 years. You all heard Darby describe her experience so far, her age, the decision that she has made. I'm going to do everything I can to have your back, to fight for you, so that you make a decision to be in that classroom, so that you are helping this community get ahead and go. Forward. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your choice of profession. Thanks for the question.
Hello there.
Good to see you.
Back when you were running for senator, you looked for a farm. You found Darby's father, Marley's father, was a county agent. So you came out, looked at the cows, saw the cotton. We had a good time. You promised. You went on, ran, got the results, and you didn't win. That next time we saw.
I have great memories of that visit with you and your family, and getting to walk your land with you and listen to stories from you and sit down in the living room with you. And I've got another good memory now on the second visit to Quanah, and also some more money in the bank. Thank you for coming out. Very generous of you.
Hello, I'm Larry Brown, 79 years old. I don't want a governor that's fighting the federal government every step of the way, and I think your amendment will do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No two people are ever going to agree all the time. And I know that from experience. I've been married for 17 years. You all who are married understand that as well. You can love the heck out of that person with you, but you're going to have some disagreements, and that's natural. And it's even good, because in the space between what I think and what you think, the conclusion you've drawn and I've drawn, there's some common ground. And I may have missed something, and if I will listen to you, I may understand a little bit better. The gentleman talks about having a governor right now who will not work with the federal government when it's a government of the other party. We're missing out on a lot, and it's not just the $10 billion in Medicaid funding every single year. It's 90 cents on the dollar for the cost of expansion. It is how we're going to spend this infrastructure money that we badly need in our communities, our water systems, our wastewater systems, rural broadband, internet, our roads, the things that we count on. It's losing out potentially on grants that support members of law enforcement at the local level who have one of the most important and sometimes, all too often, one of the more dangerous jobs. But it also moves in the other direction. We have a governor right now who, for whatever reason, will fight local leadership and tell you what you can or cannot do. I'll tell you a quick story. In the midst of COVID, summer before last, El Paso, Texas, my hometown, one of the 254 counties of the state, was the deadliest city in the nation, bar none. We set up not one mobile morgue in El Paso, we set up 10 mobile morgues. We had a real need to call in the National Guard to move the bodies because people were dying so quickly. Our county judge, who just so happens to be a Democrat, found himself, instead of focusing on these families and their grieving and making it better where he could, fighting our governor who would not allow him to issue the public health orders that would have saved more lives in our community. The governor's done the same thing to private businesses, mom and pop shops, telling them what you can or cannot do when it comes to protecting your employees, protecting your customers. Listen, I trust you to do the right thing. I want to give you the freedom to do the right thing through your elected representatives on the school board, on the county commissioner's court, on the city council, at whatever position of public trust at the local level. I guarantee you, you chose to put that person there because you trust them and they know you. Who am I to impose my will or mandate something differently to you? So, to the gentleman's point, I think this works in every direction. At the federal level, let's find the common ground where we can. I served 6 years in Congress. Greatest job of my life was being on the House Veterans Affairs Committee for those 6 years, serving veterans who had served us. I was in a Republican majority institution, and I promised my community I'd hold town hall meetings just like this every month, and I did. And the last thing that I was going to do was come back to the veterans in El Paso and say, you know what, those damn Republicans, I just can't get around them, I just can't get past them, I can't work with them. They don't care about veterans as much as I and other Democrats care about veterans. So just keep re-electing me, and one day we'll be in majority, we'll be able to do something. I would have been laughed out of the room. I would never have won re-election to that office. So I found a way to find common ground with that Republican majority. We wrote a bill to expand access to mental health care for veterans in our community. I wrote it, but I had to compromise on it in order to get Republican support. We passed it 435-0 in the House. We passed it in the Senate. And there's one man in this country with whom I agree on almost nothing. But President Donald J. Trump signed that bill into law, and we were able to save more lives of more veterans in this state and across the country. So, sir, I promise you, I'll work with anyone, anytime, anywhere. No me importa the party. It doesn't matter to me the party they belong to, the differences between us. We're going to find the common ground and get the job done. Thank you for asking the question. Appreciate that.
Hi, my name's Kathy. We've met before in Vernon. I'm going to be 42 in a couple of weeks. I've worked for the state of Texas for 15 years, and I worked for a state hospital in mental health. And the changes that I've seen in those 15 years is heartbreaking. And we've got patients that have no family that care about them, that the worst holiday to spend with them is Christmas. We consider ourselves their family. What I want to know is how can we improve the mental health in this state so that they don't have to be there if they don't need to be.
Thank you for asking the question. I mentioned earlier the $10 billion that we could bring in Medicaid spending. A lot of that can go to mental health. But if you're starting out as 51st in the nation, even that $10 billion isn't going to get the job done. You may have seen the press conference the day after that shooting in Uvalde, and one of the few things the governor pointed to that he said we needed to address to stop these going forward is mental health, as though these things just happen because we don't have enough mental health care. Well, I do think that improving mental health care access would improve things overall. It may in some way address violence that we have in some of our communities to some degree. The problem is, the month before Uvalde, he took $211 million out of the mental health care budget of the state of Texas. So in addition to expanding Medicaid, we've got to restore the money that has been withdrawn. And then we're going to have to find more resources to put into that, because not only is the county jail system the largest provider right now, the largest inpatient mental health care facility in a state of 30 million people is the Harris County Jail in downtown Houston, Texas. If you're looking for a bed for a mental health care patient, that's probably the fastest way that you're going to be able to find one. And in addition, and I know this from experience with my family, the wait list for state-supported services for someone who may have intellectual disabilities or other disabilities or be medically complex in the state is 18 years. We didn't find out about that until my sister was 18 years old, that we had another 18 years to wait because we'd just gotten on the list. We're dead last in the country on that as well. And on this Sunday, I think it's worth asking ourselves how we're doing when it comes to taking care of the most vulnerable among us. There's no political action committee for those with mental health care challenges. There's no huge lobby for those who have children who are medically complex and medically expensive to take care of. Those with these intellectual disabilities don't hire the lobbyists and the lawyers to get money out of the state budget. That's on us. We're the voters, we're their voice, we're their chance to do better going forward. So winning this election is fundamental to getting the funding for all of these things that we talked about. And funding is critical, and I think foundational, but we also have to have accountability, because I know that we want great stewards of our taxpayer dollars, and we're not just going to throw a bunch of money at these challenges. We're going to hold those who are in these positions accountable for how that money is used, the outcomes for these patients, and supporting state employees like you, who we asked to do this work under very trying conditions. And I don't know how long it's been since you've had a pay increase or retired state employees have had a cost of living adjustment, but we have some similar dynamics to our school teachers in the state of Texas right now. And the fact that you and others, including within Child Protective Services and a foster care program with 32,000 kids that, again, unfortunately, is the worst one in the country, the fact that you're willing to continue in this job, you have my eternal gratitude. More than that, you have action from me when we win this election. Thanks for asking that question.
Hi, I'm Brenda Tabor. I was born and raised here. I'm a retired school teacher from Quanah. I love what you're going to try to do for retired teachers. I want to live in a state that values children more than guns. And don't get me wrong, my husband hunts, we have guns locked up in gun safe, but these assault rifles in the hands of these 18 to 21-year-olds, it's just wrong. It's just wrong. Do you have plans for that?
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for dedicating your life to education. Thanks for asking a really important question. I mentioned we were knocking on doors earlier in Quanah. It doesn't matter the community I'm in. The door I knock on, the person being a Republican, a Democrat, an unregistered future voter, this issue will come up. I was knocking on doors in Snyder, and a woman who had a child who was about to go into kindergarten, 5-year-old, said two things. So one, would love if we had universal all-day pre-K, because when this kiddo was 3 and she was 4, it would have been nice for her to begin learning and for me to be able to go to work or to finish my education, do whatever it is that I can do to ensure that she's got a better opportunity. And then she talked about the safety of that classroom that 5-year-old is going into, because more than 8 weeks removed from that Uvalde massacre, where 19 kids were taken from us, shot at point-blank range with a weapon that was originally designed for use on a battlefield, whose high-impact, high-velocity round liquefies everything inside your system. All that soft tissue, you just bleed out before there's a chance for us to save your life. She said, nothing's changed before my kid starts her school year. What is it going to take? And I mentioned earlier, we're not all going to agree on every aspect of our ideal solution. I mean, for me, I'd say that we shouldn't have AR-15s or AK-47s in civilian hands. I think it's perfectly appropriate for a battlefield, but that weapon was designed for one use only, and that was to kill other human beings. Keep it there. We don't need it in our communities. But even if we don't find agreement or progress on that, here's some things that, as I've listened to your neighbors across the state, I do think we can move forward on. One is a universal background check. Right now, if you buy from a licensed gun dealer, you have to go through a background check. They're going to make sure that if you have a violent criminal record, if there's some other flag next to your name, that they're not going to sell you that firearm, so that you don't use it against yourself, so that you don't use it against somebody in your life or in your community. But we don't have a universal background check, which means if you're denied by that gun dealer, you can still go to a private seller, and they'll do no background check whatsoever and gladly sell you the weapon. That happened in Midland, Odessa in 2019. Guy tried to buy a gun, got denied by the background check, went and bought that AR-15 from a private seller, killed 8 people in that community, shot a baby girl in the face, who miraculously survived the shooting, but that never should have taken place. A background check could have prevented that. Red flag laws. This is where there's a firearm in the household, and the owner of that firearm, or a person who has access to that firearm, has been threatening to kill themselves, has been threatening to kill their wife, has been threatening to shoot somebody at work or in school. Through due process, we're able, as a state, to intervene, remove that firearm from the household, make sure that person is okay, address whatever the problem is before returning that firearm into that environment. The shooter in Uvalde was sending off signals in every direction. In fact, some of his friends called him a school shooter before he bought those AR-15s, 2 of them and hundreds of rounds of ammunition, and walked into those schools and shot the people within them. The guy who killed 23 people in El Paso in 2019 bought that AK-47 in Allen, Texas. His mom called the police when that AK-47 came in, and she said, there's something wrong here. I don't know what he needs this weapon for. I wonder if she told him that he may have some problems. But the police said there's nothing we can do because we don't have a red flag law on the books. Red flag laws can save lives. You mentioned that you all keep your guns locked up. That's what we do in our family as well, because we have a 15-year-old, a 14-year-old, and an 11-year-old in the house. Even though we've taught them how to shoot and we've taught them the responsibility of owning that firearm, kids are kids and they do dumb stuff. And every day, it seems, you read about a child picking up an unsecured gun and accidentally shooting themselves or shooting someone else in the household. Safe storage laws could save more lives. And then this last one. What if, at a minimum, when it comes to AR-15s and AK-47s, we raise the age of purchase to 21 years old? I mean, this 18-year-old, he literally waited, followed the law, waited until his 18th birthday in Uvalde to go buy those weapons and those rounds of ammunition. Now, those 4 ideas, in addition to listening to our school teachers, our educators, our principals about how to make their schools safer, in addition to investing in more mental health care, they will not stop every shooting or every instance of gun violence in our state, but they will reduce it significantly from where we are. And they take us in a different direction from our current governor, who, after all of these massacres, instead of making it harder for people who should not have a firearm to obtain one, made it easier. He signed something called permitless carry into law. We used to, as you all know, because many of you had these licenses, we used to have a program called License to Carry in Texas. You want to carry a gun in public? That's cool with us. Just go through this background check, receive some firearms training. We're going to vet you through law enforcement to make sure that there are no flags. You are good to go. I was good with that. I supported it. You probably did as well. So did law enforcement. Because when Greg Abbott entertained the idea of doing away with all that, it was police chiefs, sheriffs, their deputies, and their officers who begged him not to. They said, Governor, in the last 5 years, 38,000 times we denied a license to carry a gun to somebody because they were just too dangerous to themselves or to the public. If you sign this, all 38,000 of them will be free to carry and will be none the wiser or safer for it, as will the tens of thousands of people who never applied for a license to carry in the first place because they never would have passed the background check. They're out on our streets now, armed and loaded as well. More cops have been gunned down in this state than in any other, and predictably we've seen an increase in gun violence. So again, there are things that we can do to stop the direction we're in, to improve the safety of our fellow citizens, all while defending the Second Amendment. We're Texans, we get this, we understand it, we can do it. We just need the political will and the change in leadership to make it happen. Thank you for asking the question. Okay, 2 more questions.
A lot of my questions have already been answered by you, but the mental health issue is really important to me because I have a son who has a problem. We're having problems now getting him into mental health. A lot. And I hate it because I'm having to deal with it. We get turned down, we're canceled, they're canceled, they're canceled. I don't know what to do. It's hard on parents. It's hard on the community.
We've got to do better by and for you and your son and for everyone who has this challenge. And do our best to make the most of the opportunity, because here's the flip side of what you just described. If you're able to get consistent services, if access is not an issue, if the treatment, whether through therapy, psychotropic medication, whatever the need is met, then that young man can be free to live up to his potential. That's good for him, it's good for you. It's great for all of us. When you're able to do that, you return to work, or you start a business, you create jobs. You raise your family, you create great works of art or music, you run for office, you're the next governor of the state. Whatever God put you on this planet to do in the first place, you're now well enough to do that. And all of us gain the benefit of it. I talked about high property taxes earlier. There are so many people whose economic opportunity has not yet been unleashed. When it is, are going to be paying their fair share, reducing the burden on all of us. I say this because some may be tempted to think, well, I don't have a son who has that problem. No one in my family meets that description. What bother is it of mine? Beyond the moral imperative, which I hope is compelling for all of us just to do the right thing when we have the opportunity to do the right thing, there's our own selfish interest in all of us gaining from what this young man and what other people in our communities should and will be able to do if we just invest in them and make sure that they're okay. So, I went through the policy prescriptions earlier. I won't repeat them or bore you with them. I'll just tell you that in terms of my heart and where my fight is, I want to make sure that we're delivering for you and your son, especially in communities that are so often underserved and overlooked. That's why I'm here for my second visit. It's why I will come back as governor, so that in this same room you can hold me accountable for what I do or fail to do based on the conversation that we've just had. Thank you so much for coming out. I really appreciate it.
So we're going to get this gentleman right here and this lady back here.
Okay.
Your last two.
I've got a couple of questions for you. I'm Kenneth Arter, been here 30 plus years. You touched on abortion. I'm a Christian. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. God asked his son in heaven, would you go to earth and be the sacrificial lamb? He said yes, and he did. And man killed him. God is the creator of all life. You're for abortion. Are you not? Are you for abortion?
I'm for a woman being able to make her own decisions.
I
about
understand.
her own body.
All you women that are clapping, do y'all know how an abortion was created? A doctor sticks a
I've had
vacuum
several,
cleaner
excuse me, I've had
up a
several
woman's-
spontaneous abortions. Do you know what those are? Those are miscarriages.
Yes.
And they are
Yes.
heartbreaking.
Yes, they are.
Yes, they are. I've had one at 4 or 5 months, and that's even more heartbreaking. And what would be worse would be the government coming in, and, we were devastated, my husband and I.
I firmly
And
believe
for the
that.
government to stick their nose in that, horrible, horrible. I hate for any woman to have to make that choice.
Do you know
I would
what
hate for
age?
any, but that is her choice, and that is between her and her God.
Do you know what women have abortion at the age of 20 to 29? College girls. It's God's choice. God gave them life. No woman gets pregnant without God putting his finger on
Shame
it.
on you. Because
Let's
now
look-
you're saying that she has to go to jail or prison or whatever because she had a spontaneous abortion. I have children, so you cannot stand there and tell me, oh, I'm going to go to hell. No, sir. I'm a Christian. I believe in God. But my goodness, this is our body, our choice. And I will deal with my God.
So,
No,
God.
you are not going to tell me. Me and my God. That's it. Boom. End of story.
And the doctors that are committing this. Second question.
It wasn't. It was spontaneous
You said
abortion.
that I shouldn't have the right to have an ARP. Correct?
Yes, I don't think that any civilian should have an AR-15. or
Have you
AK-47.
ever owned one?
I've never owned one. I've used one. I've shot one.
glorified 22, and you know it.
No, what I know is that it was designed and engineered for use on
It
the
was.
battlefield by the United States Army to kill human beings 500 yards through a helmet to kill an enemy soldier. Those kids did not have a helmet on. They were not shot at 500 yards. They were shot at 5 feet. The fact that you are okay with that is more disturbing than anything else that I've
The kids that were shot in Uvalde, there was 376 police officers on scene at that time. The children that were shot, more than half of them bled out because the cops wouldn't go in and tend to them. There was 376 cops and one hero. One man went in with a shotgun and took care of it. But what you're saying is that you should take the gun right away from every Texan.
I'm not. Listen, you and I, wait, let me see if I can find some common ground. You and I probably agree that the Second Amendment is not unlimited, right? Like, do you think
You should be untouchable.
So you think you should be able to carry a grenade launcher?
No,
A bazooka? Okay, well then you believe in a limit. There's a line.
There is a line.
So the only question is, and I actually fully respect, I bet you would. I fully respect where you are on this line. You think that we should have AR-15s. I think we shouldn't. At one time in the 1930s, there were some people who thought we should have fully automatic machine guns. And there were some people who didn't.
I don't agree with that.
And as a country, we decided to restrict the ownership of automatic machine guns. You don't see them anymore. There are no more school shootings or mass shootings or mob shootings with machine guns because back then we made that decision. So all I'm saying is that I respect the conclusion you made on where that line should be. I think the line is a little bit over here. But I agree on the Second Amendment, your right to own a firearm. And I'm hoping that we can protect that while doing a better job of protecting the lives of our children in school, the people in our communities. And the suggestions I've made of a universal background check, of a red flag, of safe
Discourage that.
But yeah, so I think we can agree on some of these things. That's how we're moving forward.
And also, as Uvalde, the school doors were wide open.
Right.
This day and age, that should never happen.
That's right.
I think you should have to come through one or two doors with metal detectors, and you should have to be buzzed in.
Do you realize when you're living in Quanah, Texas?
Yes.
I live in Ford County. Do you realize?
My goodness. It can happen in Quanah, Texas, as well as it could in Uvalde. But they didn't in Uvalde. Uvalde had wide open doors.
You're
I
right.
walked in.
You're right. You're absolutely right
Make
about
that
that.
mandatory.
You are so right about that. Absolutely.
All right, we're gonna go to the next question now. The next person, here we go.
Hello, Dale.
Hi there.
I would let you know I supported you for senator. I'll support you for governor. If you're going to run for president, I'll support you there too. My name is Marilyn Burgess, and I'm a retired school teacher. I want to say that about the abortion thing. I love kids. I really, truly do. But I believe it's a woman's right to choose. Now, you want to regulate something about abortion, kids? A man can have sex with a woman, 100 women, and get 100 women pregnant. A woman can have sex with 100 men, and only one time she can get pregnant.
Absolutely.
Fix the milk.
This is gonna be our last question. Excuse me.
My name is Brandy Laylaw, and I live here in Quanah. I have raised 5 boys here in Quanah, two of which went into the military. So I want to ask you, if you were to be elected, what are your top 3 priorities January 1st?
Concerning veterans and active duty.
No, what are your top 3 priorities January 1st?
One, let's fix the grid so that you can always count on the lights coming on, the heat running, your water flowing. 2, let's expand Medicaid so that you can always count on being able to see a doctor or provider or prescription. 3, let's make sure that we do everything we can to get Darby and every other school teacher and educator to stay in that classroom or attract the new ones who are there by increasing their pay, ensuring that they have the attendance and other services that they need, treated with the respect that they're deserved, and that we prioritize public education. There's a million things I want to say to you, but I wanted to give you 3 per your question. But tell me if you have another question or something else.
I have a question that you seem to have left out. No one's worried about it, and probably I'm the only one worried about it right now, because my son is serving at our southern border. So what are you going to do about that? January 15th or into October of that next year? How long is our National Guard going to be deployed in this whole, everywhere? My son has been in Washington, D.C. at the Capitol. He has been in Austin on a COVID task force, and he is now Operation Lone Star at Eagle Pass. Yeah. There was on July 4th 5,000 crossings. Last Monday, when I had finally talked to him after calling, I get no response because he is so busy. There was more people crossing that border than there is in Quanah, Texas. If our community was on that border, you would not be talking about Medicaid or anything, because those ranchers down there are worried about their border. So what are you going to do for our servicemen?
They hire
or
people from down there.
Let's
No,
let her finish.
you're not running for governor, and they don't hire anybody from down there. Our soldiers and our border patrol.
His job as a soldier.
His job.
As a National Guard.
Yes, and thank you for saying thank you for his service. They're hiring people. Did you sign up to serve? No. So what are you going to do for our soldiers that have been keeping everybody out? There was a way to go about it in the United States. Have you been to Ellis Island and seen what they had to do? They had to have the teeth checked. They had to have everything checked. They had to be healthy to come into our country. That's not
the past administration.
That may be true, but we're looking at him as the future governor. I'm not going to questions. So, what can you do?
I'm happy to answer your question. Are you done asking?
Are you going to open the border and let them in, and our soldiers come home, and then everybody is at jeopardy? Or are you going to keep it shut? What are you going to do?
So thank you for the question, and I want to thank, through you, your son for his service to our country and to our state.
Thank you, because there's a lot of people in this community that want people to serve, and then slide comment like this.
There is a plan. It was created by a 16-year-old girl.
Let me answer this question, if you don't mind. Let me answer this question. So, when it comes to the border, where I live and where I'm raising my 3 kids with my wife, Amy, I agree with you that we have a problem, and that people are coming here in a disorderly fashion. They're not following our laws. We don't know who's coming in, what they're bringing, what's happening. We know that people are dying. We saw the dozens of people who cooked to death in the back of that trailer in San Antonio. We know that fentanyl is being trafficked into our communities. It's killing the people all throughout Texas and this country. And we also know that there's human trafficking, and that really concerns me. I think that really concerns all of us. The answer to this is to make sure that we have a legal and an orderly and a safe path for people to come here who want to come here and do something good. They want to work at the Cotton Gin in Roscoe that cannot find a single person born in Roscoe or Sweetwater to work any one of those 46 jobs. Every one of them is taken by an immigrant because they're the only folks that will work it. When I go to Lamesa, and it's probably true just outside of Quanah, to those cotton growers, very often they're dependent on immigrant labor as well. If you want to come here and work one of those jobs, I want there to be a safe, legal, orderly path for you to do that. If you want to join your family because they're up here working, safe, legal, orderly path. If you want to claim asylum because you cannot return to your home country because you'll die, just like my forefathers would have died if they'd gone back to the Blight in Ireland. They would have starved to death. This is the one place that they could come to that would take them in. Safe, legal, orderly path. If you want to hurt us, we're going to stop you. And if you're in our country, we're going to return you to the country from which you came and make sure that you never come back again. That will require solutions, like a Texas-based guest worker program that says, come here, work, and we're going to make sure you return to your home country to be with your family because you love your home country as much as I love my home country. We're going to make sure that we listen to the ranchers in Del Rio and Eagle Pass and Zapata County on what the best security solutions are for their communities. And I've gone down there to listen to them, as I have to members of the Guard who are posted there. And every one of them, to a person, has told me that they don't want to be down there. They're concerned that they have no powers to arrest, no powers to detain. At best, they can spot and report in to DPS and to Border Patrol. As you know, we've lost the lives of 8 of them so far. 4 have killed themselves. 4 have died under questionable circumstances. None of them, by the way, killed by a migrant or anyone else. I would end that involuntary activation on day 1. I'd bring them home to their families, to their communities, to their kids. Every Guard member that I've talked to, they said the reason I joined was because, in some cases after 9/11, I wanted to make sure that I stepped up and served my country. In other cases, I live in Houston, Texas. Hurricane Harvey, I saw those Guardmen come in and literally save people from drowning in their homes. I wanted to do that. Being posted and sitting in a Humvee all day in and day out for a year, that's not why they signed up. Their tuition benefits were cut in half to pay for this. They have not been paid on time in many circumstances. The first few months, they were living 18 men to a trailer in these man camps, and they still don't have bathroom facilities where they're posted up right now. This is not a solution. This is a stunt. So I want to get back to us as the defining border state, the defining immigrant state, coming up with solutions. We haven't had one since Ronald Reagan was the president of this country. That's the last time we comprehensively rewrote our immigration laws. I want a safe, secure border. Folks who come here, they follow the law. That's the only way you're allowed to come into the United States.
So is that a wall or no wall?
No wall.
So how are you going to keep those people out without bringing our sons, daughters, grandsons?
I'll tell you what, and I live there, and just with all due respect, as someone who spent 49 years on the border, the wall is not going to keep out the folks who are coming to this country. We've got to find legal channels for them to do that at our ports of entry. And I'll tell you, from someone who lives in a community that has walls, that hasn't done the trick, nor has the massive increase in the size of the Border Patrol. And I'm grateful for those Border Patrol agents, those men and women. That's a very tough, often very dangerous job. But we've exponentially grown the size of that. We've exponentially grown what we're spending in DHS. You look at the rate of inflow in 2001, 2002, in the George W. Bush presidency. It's the same number as the last year of the Donald Trump presidency. You're seeing an increase right now during the Biden administration. You'll see peaks and valleys until we do something comprehensively and work on solutions instead of stunts. Unless you think I am doing this on a partisan basis, I think that Republicans have failed on this. I know that Democrats have failed on this. We have had every lever of power in every branch of government, and we've done absolutely nothing to fix this problem, leaving it out there to be scapegoated and demagogued by those who don't want to do the right thing when it's right in front of us. It's going to take Republicans and Democrats working together to get this done. I promise you I'll focus on that.
The border needs to be secure, but what are you going to do January 1? Because that was not your top 3.
Yeah.
You're worried about this, you're worried about that. What they are bringing in so much fentanyl.
Yeah.
That is killing
Let's do
children.
a better.
That's that's killing children like the guns are.
Absolutely. So, what if instead of worrying about every single person who's present at our border, we take out those who are looking for work, who want to join family, or are claiming asylum? And I probably didn't say this clearly, I want Texas to come up with a solution for those 3 categories of people. That's the vast majority. That's like 99% of the people present at our border. If there were a legal, safe, orderly path for them to come here, then you can focus 100% of our attention on those who want to traffic fentanyl or those who want to traffic in human beings. That's my solution. Components of it include a guest worker program on Texas terms. Components of it include reducing the wait time if you want to join a family member. It can be as long as 20 years if you're coming from Mexico into the state of Texas, to do it the right way and stand in the back of the line. You should stand in the line because that's the law, but I understand why some people jump that line and try to come in between ports of entry. We reduced that wait time by lifting the caps on every single country, including Mexico. Then we're no longer going to have people breaking the law in order to enter the United States. Those are some of the things that we can come up with here in Texas that will allow us to do that. So I appreciate the question. I'm concerned about it as well. I know that we can come up with a solution. I live on the border, raising my kids there. I don't know that there's a person who has more to gain or to lose based on the safety of our border than the person who actually lives there in the first place. So it's got my attention, and I want to bring your son back home. I want to end that involuntary activation. Should never have been activated in the first place, in my opinion.
Who guard the border if they don't?
Well, you've got more than 20,000 Border Patrol agents.
Yes.
You have a surge of DPS troopers
Yes.
who are on the border. You have, again, these members of the Guard who are heroes in my book, but who have no powers to arrest or to detain. As you probably know, the only power they have is to spot and to report. I'm grateful for those who can do that. The vast majority that I have met are posted on stretches of highway where they have not seen a single soul trying to enter this border. Some have, and there's a role for some of them, all right? So a voluntary deployment of some members of the Guard in high traffic areas, absolutely. But 10,000 members of the Guard at the cost of billions of dollars to you and to me, no, I'm not for that at all.
All right, we need to go to our last question. We need to wrap up. Our last question right here.
Well, congratulations to your run.
Thank you.
And I'm sure hope you win. We're all for you, man. We believe in you.
Thank you.
We're desperately waiting on a change, and we believe you'll be able to do it for the Texas people here in Quanah and all over the state and all over America. And we want you to do something with the America Affordable Care Act, and I heard you address that, and I appreciate that. And I just want you to know there's a lot of division going on, and we want the change to be made, and we're looking for you to make the change. So just keep your hand in God's hand and walk with God, and get good people around you that can help you get things back the way they need to be here in Texas and all over America. Just take God with you. You won't get God sometimes. You have to cross the line. So take God with you, and you got my vote. And congratulations.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. It's the best advice I've gotten today. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. I want to thank Quanah, everyone, for coming out today. I really want to thank you for getting this organized, introducing me, and making sure that we could come together for the conversation. Thanks to our members of law enforcement who were here, posted up at the back and came out.